thank you for joining us today. We're looking forward to spending the next hour or so together to present to you our proposed facilities bond projects for the Syosset Central School District, which comprise phase 3 of our capital plan. Joining us this morning on the Zoom, we have Dr. Thomas Rogers, our district superintendent. We have Mr. Greg Hamilton, our executive director of facilities and operations. Dr. Patricia Rufo, our Associate Superintendent for Business, and two of our architects from H2M, Kevin Medler and Megan Bellato. So thank you very much for joining us. And what we'd like to do this morning is to present to you the variety of projects, and we're going to talk a little bit about the cost value that goes into the projects, as well as how they're broken down and spread throughout the district. Dr. Rogers, would you like to say a word or two to the audience before we begin our slideshow?
Yes, I'll just welcome everyone and say I hope everyone has a wonderful break and new year. The reason for doing this is the board has put together a draft plan for a facilities project, and the draft plan addresses essentially 3 priorities. The first priority is health and safety items that have been identified by our architects and engineers as needing attention in the next 5 years. It addresses, and that includes building systems that are nearing their end of life. It also addresses what are called portable classrooms. These are had once been trailers. They have been used as classrooms here, but they have also reached the end of their useful life and need replacement. And then lastly, it deals with the enrollment growth that we've been experiencing as a school district and make sure that we have space to accommodate the youngsters that are here already and that we anticipate will age through the system over the course of the next several years. So it's really kind of a 3-pronged plan. And what we did the last time in 2016 when we had a large project, we put a draft plan together. We shared that plan with the community. We asked the community for feedback. We made some muscular design changes to that plan as a result of that community feedback. And then the board finalized a plan that was put out for public approval. So we're doing the same process here. This is a draft plan. We welcome comments, thoughts, suggestions, and they will all inform the final plan that the board puts together. So we'll go through in some detail what we're doing here, and we'll provide an opportunity for folks to share their thoughts and suggestions with us electronically. And as questions come in, we will put those into a running Q&A document that the community will have access to. And as suggestions come in, we'll work on those suggestions with the planning team, the people that you see on screen here, to incorporate those that make sense for the school district over the course of the long haul. And lastly, just the reason for the format. What we found is that meetings like these and PTA meetings, et cetera, are better attended when we make them available electronically. It allows people to work around their own personal logistics. And so we'll have some opportunities in the new year to meet in person, but we wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to get people informed as quickly as we could. So with all of that as a backdrop for how we found ourselves in this place, I'll turn it back to Dr.
Thank you. And each of the points that Dr. Rogers mentioned we'll be covering in our slide presentation in more detail. And once again, at the end of the presentation, our public informations officer will be sending out links so that the public watching this now, as well as the fact that it will be archived so it can be watched at a later date, where we are encouraging any of your thoughts, ideas, suggestions, concerns, or questions. You'll have an opportunity to submit those to us on a Google form, and we promise we will be taking everything into careful consideration. So after the viewing of this, be on the lookout for that additional link to be sent, and please take a moment and share your thoughts with us. So as the screen now populates with our slideshow, we're going to be taking it through, and I'll be calling upon the members of our platform here to talk about some of the specifics as we get to them. So, and again, the overview and the breakdown and the ability for us to divide the projects up, they come into several categories. The first category is typically known as AVI. It stands for Annual Visual Inspection. And this is a result of the inspection that our architects do each year. And these are considered to be required projects, required for the necessity of maintaining our buildings, maintaining our structures, as well as for safety. And some of the categories that these fall under would be paving, roofing, exterior walls, plumbing, bathrooms, locker rooms, pools, cabinetry in some of our classrooms, and also ventilation. So that's AVI, and we will be talking about those. Dr. Rogers mentioned the replacement of our aging portable classrooms. We'll be taking a look at the architectural renditions for how and what this will look like in our 4 elementary schools, Bayless, Berry Hill, Village, and Walt Whitman. We will be talking a little bit about the impact of our enrollment growth and how that has led to various needs district-wide to provide for facilities. We'll be talking about work being done at our middle schools. The capital projects proposition that we'll be taking a look at will be dealing specifically with work being done at HBT. However, it is important to note that there will also be attention to Southwood School and work being done there, just that work would not be funded through this capital projects initiative. The Southwoods work will be to relocate our current business offices, which do make up one of the wings of the Southwoods Middle School. And by relocating the business offices, we'll be able to restore that wing to classroom space for the students and staff at Southwoods Middle School. Also focusing on, as a result of enrollment, we have Syosset High School. We'll be talking about the relocation of the school library, also with the intention of restoring classroom space, as well as constructing additional gym space, consolidating the guidance and mental health services offices into one overall suite. And as a result of that, being able to capture more space in order to expand the area for our robotics and technology classrooms. The next category that the projects fall under deals with safety, efficiency, and programs. We'll be talking about the HBT entry vestibule. We'll be talking about putting in a rear bus loop that will go around the back of Syosset High School in order to facilitate and improve dismissal timing as well as traffic flow. We'll be talking about putting in a track at HBT and also putting in new playgrounds at South Grove, AP Willits, and Robbins Lane Elementary School. And then to finish our presentation off today, we're going to be talking about an additional option for consideration. And your feedback, again, not only on all of these, but on this also will be very important, about the possibility of air conditioning for the main gyms that currently do not have them at the elementary schools, as well as air conditioning in the middle school gym. So let's begin with what the AVI covers, the the Annual Visual Inspection Report. So this chart here is an overall breakdown of all 10 schools. And as you can see, the building system descriptions that go down the left-hand column and throughout. So we have the site, roofing systems, exterior finishes, interior finishes, plumbing, bathroom, and mechanical systems. As you can see, each of our different buildings, there is something through the AVI report that attends to somewhere at each of our 10 buildings. Greg Hamilton, would you like to maybe comment on the AVI report at this time?
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Curry. So the chart in front of you is a summary by building of the major building systems that were identified in the visual inspection report. And what the architects have done is they've made us aware of items that need attention, and they've helped us with pricing it out. So you will see something in every building, with the biggest category being the exterior walls are repointing. So, what they do there is we go through and take out, the old mortar joints and make it new, and that helps to keep water from coming into the building. So that's actually a very, very important tool that we use to help maintain our buildings. And then probably the next highest one is roofing. And, we've done a really good job of replacing roofs has the roofs become up for renovation. So here you see you see 4 roofs, with it not being at the high school. That's not the entire roof, but that's a big section of the high school roof. We tend to do smaller sections in our transfer to capital project, but unfortunately, the roofs continue to get older, and they need more attention, as well as the other building systems.
Excellent. Thank you. So while this chart disaggregates the work by school and cost, our next slide is going to present the same information, just in a different fashion, so that there's a little bit more of an ease with comparing the work being done and the financial dedication that will be given to each building. So as you can see, the AVI breakdown by school is on the left-hand side of the chart, and the same ABI breakdown, but by work, is on the right-hand side of the chart. So this allows for us to see the information from the previous slide in a slightly different fashion. And as we can see, there will be work being done at all 10 of our schools. So let's dive right in. Let's jump right into our elementary school specific projects. And as we look at the specific projects for the elementary school, we're looking at approximately an investment of $27.4 million. The large bulk of that will be certainly replacing the aging portables at Bayless, Berry Hill, Village, and Walt Whitman. And we do have dedicated architect slides to show you the drawings and what these will look like. And we'll also be looking to install new playgrounds at Robbins Lane, South Grove, and Willits. And we have a rendition of a possible version of what one of those new playgrounds might look like. And we'll certainly get feedback on that as we move forward with the project. Let's take a look, though, and Dr. Rogers, if you wouldn't mind jumping in here to talk a little bit about enrollment growth before we get into the architect pictures, so that we have a little bit of an understanding of enrollment growth as we look to the actual work we'll be doing.
Sure. So projecting enrollment growth is always tricky, even in the best of times. And with the pandemic and now the aftermath of the pandemic, and doing enrollment projections has become more challenging than ever. What we have seen, though, is a steady increase since the 2015 school year in the enrollment that we have here in the district. And then we had a large influx of enrollment in the summer of 2021. Most of those kids were in elementary school. So as they get older, they will age into the middle schools. And as they continue to get older, they'll eventually age into the high school population. So there are 2 elementary schools that are very tight right now in terms of their enrollment. Our projections are for those students to age out of the elementary schools and into the middle schools, and that will ease the enrollment at those elementary schools, but they'll still remain near historically high levels. And so we want to make sure that we accommodate that peak growth and have enough residual room so that we can accommodate the enrollment that we project there. At the middle schools, it appears that H.B. Thompson has met its peak and will stay at its peak on a plateau for a little while, but we anticipate more growth yet to come at Southwoods Middle School. And at the high school, again, we anticipate as those youngsters age into the high school population, we're already seeing the high school population growing. You can see that with the steep line, and it will peak sometime around the year 2030, but we'll still be up to 100 kids long before the year 2030. So that enrollment growth is already here, it's already happening, and we have to accommodate it. So just for a sense of scale, the high school is going to grow by over 10% in terms of its enrollment. And we have about 100 classrooms at the high school right now. So a 10% increase in classrooms would be in the neighborhood of 10 classrooms.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to jump in now to take a look at the possible replacement of the portables with the modular construction at Berry Hill. And we start with Berry Hill because it is probably going to be the most complex replacement project due to the topography of the land behind the Berry Hill School. What you're seeing here on the slide in front of you, if you take a look on the left-hand side, is slightly shaded in a grayish color. The addition and the replacement of the current modulars, and these will be in a different location. They'll be off of the all-purpose room in the back left quadrant, and it will be multi-level. There will actually be 3 levels. One will be a walkout at the elevation, the ground elevation, and then there will be a floor above that and a 3rd floor as well. Greg, or perhaps Megan or Kevin, would you want to jump in at this point and explain how this modular system will work?
Kevin and Megan, do you guys want to handle that?
Sure. The intent for the modular is to be able to start the site construction while also building the structure offsite. This gives us an advantage of expediting the construction timeline. So while the site is being prepared for that pre-manufactured structure to come, it shortens the construction time that you would typically have with traditional construction. So we feel like this is the best option based on the enrollment growth timelines and what needs to be done on the site.
And I'll just add that this is probably going to be the most challenging project for us to do, both because of the complexity of the 3-story building, but also the constraints of the Berry Hill site, where the existing building stretches from property line to property line. And so it makes it difficult to get to the back of the building, and there is no level ground behind the building to build on. So we have no choice but to build in a way that acknowledges the fact that there isn't any level ground to extend out onto.
And the result of this project will yield 7 classrooms, as well as an elevator, which allows for this to be ADA compliant and to also have access out to the ground level, out to the playground area as well. Our next buildings we'll be taking a look at one at a time are Village and Bayless. Let's start with Village. Village is the picture that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. And as you can see, the modulars that will be installed are up on the upper left-hand side of the building. Currently, the portables that are at Village are on the opposite side, on the right-hand side. This picture allows for us to see that by removing them from the right-hand side, we have the ability to extend the parking lot in that area, and actually then capturing space off on the upper left-hand side with the creation of 4 modular classrooms. And this will also involve the relocation of the current playground. Greg, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So at the left-hand side of the photograph, you will see in yellow, that is the location for where a new playground will be built. A big reason for that is, as Dr. Curry mentioned, we're looking to, since parking's at a premium at this building, we're looking to increase parking. Down below where the icon is the existing parking, and then right next to that is a playground. So our plan is to extend that parking and then relocate the playground from closer to the street to closer to the building, and that's really how we plan to address increasing the parking at the location as well as relocating the playground.
Thank you. And as we look to the right-hand side of the slide, we can see the work that is being projected to take place at Bayless. Greg, would you like to speak about the work for Bayless?
Sure. At Bayless, we currently have two classrooms that are portables, and our plan is to construct modular classrooms in the same location as where the current portables are. This, out of all the buildings, is probably the most straightforward approach. So that's the design that we have for the elimination of the portables at Bayless.
Thank you. And let's move on to Walt Whitman. So at Walt Whitman, you can see is similar to the work that would be done at Village in the fact that the current portables would be on the right-hand side of the building, looking down from the top, and the new modulars will be built on the upper left-hand side. Greg, would you offer some insight into the work that would be taking place at Walt Whitman?
Sure. So as with the other construction of the modulars, the plan is to leave the modulars up while constructing. Excuse me, the portables, to leave them up and running while the modulars are being constructed in Walt Whitman. So we've looked at the site, and we feel that we could add 4 classrooms to the left-hand side of the building, which increases the classrooms by 1 at Walt Whitman, and it will be modular construction as we've discussed earlier.
Excellent. Thank you.
In a second, I'm going to ask Ms. Bellato to talk a little bit about the differences between portables, modulars, and traditional construction, so that I know we're throwing these terms around, but it'd be helpful to just define them a little bit. And I also want to just pause here and note that Walt Whitman and Berry Hill are the 2 schools that are closest to their enrollment maximums. So what we would do is we would not decommission the current portables until we had gotten through the enrollment peak. And so for some period of time, we'll have the new modular construction that's open, and we'll have the old portable construction that hasn't been demolished yet. And that will provide a lot more classroom space to get through the bubble. And then it will also provide us with some flexibility to see if our enrollment projections on the other side of the bubble are accurate.
If you don't mind, Dr. Roger, I'd like to take the definition of the prefabricated portable traditional construction. So there's differences. The biggest difference is cost. Portables is somewhat of a temporary structure. So something that's such as a construction site trailer. I'm using the most general term or general example of that. That would be more of a portable construction, where something that would be carted on site, something that was meant to be there for not a very long time, maybe a short duration of time, or a few years at best. Modular is the big brother of portables. Basically, it's a structure that's meant to be there for a while, but it's built separately, and it's actually brought in pieces, which makes the construction a lot more schedule friendly. And again, budget wise, it's a little bit better than actually traditional construction, but the savings that you get is the schedule that you get. So that modular construction are really what you would see is a real building being built off site and then brought onto site. And then traditional construction is what you see typically, which is on site construction. So your CMU wall with your brick veneer. So something that's meant to be there forever, but everything is constructed on site, which that schedule is the longest duration of schedule. So there's pros and cons to each, but the options are, schedule friendly is what we're looking to do, as well as longevity, which we'll get that with the modular construction. Will be the best of both worlds.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, at this point, we're going to move on, and we're going to take a look at middle school. So for our middle school projects, the estimated total cost comes in at approximately $3.15 million. And again, at the beginning of this presentation, we talked about that there will be work done at Southwoods Middle School. It will involve the relocation of our business suite offices and the reestablishment of classrooms. So that work will be done. However, that is not part of this particular project, and therefore we don't have detailed information about it in this presentation. But what we do have is information regarding the work being done at HBT. So there are 3 different components. We'll be looking to expand the vestibule to improve guard visibility and visitor screening. We'll be looking to install a rubberized track for not only the physical education classes, but for also the athletics that take place, and to have a track for our track and field students. And we'll be taking a look at it in the installation of fencing. And what we're looking at right now is the extension of perimeter fencing that would wind up connecting our tennis courts over to the gym area to provide additional security for the fields. But let's take a look first at the HBT vestibule entrance. Now, the view you have here is from the front traffic circle, where the current awnings or overhang out off of H.B. Thompson Middle School. You can see, for those of you that are familiar with the high school, that this rendition is very similar to the archway with the glass entryway at the high school. So this would be installed and built currently where the current overhang is. And this would be from the front entrance looking forward towards it. Our next slide is from the top-down view. And as you're looking at this, at the very top of our picture here, this is currently where our auditorium is, and as you would come through the auditorium doors. And here at the bottom, this would be the replacement of the current overhang area. And you can see that we have security doors. We have an area where security may greet our visitors, screen them, and then allow individuals into the building for that access. Greg or Dr. Rogers, would you like to talk a little bit about the HBT vestibule?
I guess what I'll just say, Dr. Curry, is yes, it's very similar to the high school design. And you see there's a security office that's where a guard is stationed, and typically that guard interacts with community members as they're coming to visit the building. We run all visits through a visitor management program, so that transaction happens in this safe place before an individual enters the hallway, the lobby of the school. So it looks very similar to the high school, and it's a much safer approach for transacting with visitors.
Excellent, thank you. The next slide is going to show us where the possibility of the track at HBT will be installed. So as you can see here, it will be a rubberized track. The interior field will be made up of natural grass, and it will be an opportunity for, again, our physical education students to take part in that, as well as our track and field and other athletic programs. We're taking a look at fencing. The fencing that is being discussed at this moment will run from the tennis court area across the front of the traffic circle and connect over to where the current corner by the gym is. So that will allow for more security, for access to the fields, and also restrict the traffic circle as well. The discussion has taken even further length in talking about the possibility of the installation of a guard shack as well, in order to allow for guards to greet visitors as they come to the school and to provide that additional security component. And let's move on to the high school. So the projects for the high school, as we're taking a look, right now, the estimate would come in at about $25.5 million. There are several projects being discussed, and we'll take a look at some of the drawings for each. We will be talking about the possibility of moving the library, which will allow for us to create a more expansive library system, as well as the ability to convert our existing library back into the 5 additional classrooms. The other projects will be covering the idea of building new gym space at the high school. This new gym space has the possibility of being converted into 4 half-gym teaching stations as needed. And when not needed, it can serve for 2 basketball courts or 1 large possible basketball court that would provide for the ability for about 600 spectators to view the various athletic events that are taking place. And as such, we'll also be talking about the installation of bathrooms to accommodating those 600 spectators. We'll be talking about the possibility of consolidating our guidance counselors, social workers, psychologists, and other mental health professionals into one suite that will make all of those services easily accessible for our students. We'll be taking a look at the idea of expanding program space for our robotics and technology classrooms. And we'll also be looking at the possibility of adding an additional bus loading space in the form of a paved loop around the high school building, with the hopes of speeding up dismissal, as well as dividing the traffic and hoping to alleviate some of the traffic that winds up on Southwoods Road, specifically during dismissal. So let's take a look first at the draft library proposal. So for those of you who are familiar with where the current library exists in the high school, it takes up the length of the major hallway off of the main courtyard as you come into the high school. And by taking the library and moving it further down towards the end of that same hall, and creating a library hub, if you will, at the far end off of the cafeteria and adjacent to the cafeteria, rather, it would then provide for a brand new, again, state-of-the-art library center that students would also have easy access to and from the cafeteria. And it would allow for us to reclaim the equivalent of 5 classrooms that the current library space comprises. Greg, would you like to add any additional points to the conversation about the library?
No, I think you've summarized it well as far as converting the existing library back into classroom space that's sorely needed with the enrollment bubble, and then building a brand new state-of-the-art library in fairly close proximity.
Excellent, thank you. And as you can see, this slide is very much a draft because some of the items that are labeled because that's the function of what the office currently is. And again, with feedback from the community as well as the staff and the building administration, this particular area would be restructured to meet the needs of what we want for the library to provide for our students. Moving on, let's talk about the gym space. So here we have one image of what it will look like from the aerial view, the top-down view. So as you can see, if you're familiar with the high school, the bottom right-hand corner is the roof of our current swimming pool. Then we have the main gym, which is the gray flat roof area here. It's actually a peaked roof. And then we currently have what we would call, say, the tarmac area, or a large paved area, and that is where the new gym space is being proposed to be built. As you can see, it would be connected to the current building through a hallway with various doors for entry as well as egress. And we have bathrooms that will be built off of this new gym space that will allow not only for access from the interior, but also from the exterior. So the importance, and as we have heard from the community, the importance of having accessible bathrooms which within a certain walking distance from many of our main fields, the ability to build this structure and provide for the bathrooms at this location would definitely meet the needs that we currently know do exist. So for perspective, in the upper right-hand corner of this image would be where the current barn is located. So in order to orient everyone to understand where we are talking about. So Greg, if you'd like, let's talk a little bit about the new gym space. And I'm actually going to go to the next slide, which provides for an enlargement of just that particular area.
Okay, thank you. So the new gym space is larger than the existing gym space. The new gym space is about 13,000 square feet. As you can see in the picture, you've got multiple basketball courts or playing surfaces with a main court in the center of the photo. The great thing about this gym that we plan on doing is, of course, you have seating on both sides. So the seating has been increased to accept around 600 visitors. And what we're looking to do is use stage curtains, or they're called stage curtains or gym curtains, to subdivide the area. So this way, if you're not having a game, you can maybe have several practices happening at the same time. And that's really, really important, since the high school is looking to grow, and it provides them with more space for teaching, as well as more space for activities. And this also gives the district another space that the community could use for its community use programs. And as Dr. Curry mentioned, it has the bathrooms that with exterior facing doors, so the public will be able to use those restrooms when they're here for a football game or a baseball game, or some other outdoor activity, without having to go into the building. The building also has design, allows us to kind of segregate this main gym space from the rest of the building, which helps us to increase efficiencies and reduce cost.
Excellent. Thank you, Greg. And I'm actually going to jump back to the previous slide for a moment, because this is also forward thinking, in the sense that down the road, in years ahead, if there is a need to expand this gym space even further, would you want to talk about how that's already being factored into the planning?
Yes. So when designing the building, we've worked with the architects to be forward thinking. Whereas if down the line we had to further increase the gymnasium space, we could essentially tack on another building to the west side where the mouse is, and that would give us additional gym space.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move
I'd
ahead.
just like to expand on the point that this was carefully designed so that it would be possible to open up the gym for community use without necessarily opening up the entire high school. So right now, there's no way to separate the gym from the entire high school space. So we have to staff the entire high school every time we open the gym for community use. But by having this as essentially a separate building that is attached to the high school, it's possible to open this building without opening the entire high school. That reduces the cost, makes it possible for us to make this available with more frequency for community use. So we really designed this to be a standalone building with its own bathroom support and its own entrances and exits, so that it can operate without us having to spend a lot of money to staff the entire high school every time there's a community use.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's move on and let's take a look at the projected plans for the Student Guidance and Mental Health Supports Suite. Dr. Rogers, would you like to talk a little bit about this particular project?
I would. So we're very grateful to the Board of Education for having continually increased its investment in mental health services for students, particularly in the wake of the pandemic. And now we have full-time social workers in every building, and we have guidance counselors and social workers, psychologists, and other mental health professionals that work at the high school. But their offices are scattered throughout the high school as they've been added over time. And so it makes it a little bit more challenging for students to identify a single place to go when they need support. And so a lot of school districts are consolidating these resources in a single area. It's what we've done at the 2 middle schools here in Syosset. And so there's an opportunity to do the same at the high school. And this will be a one-stop shop for kids who want to come in just to do program planning, or for kids who want to come in and have a conversation with one of our professionals about something that might be troubling them that they want to talk to someone about. And parenthetically, what this does is it gives us the opportunity to take advantage of a large space that has high ceilings for our robotics program in the adjacent building bay. And our robotics program has also been growing. And this will be a larger space, and it will accommodate the drone robotics program because of the higher ceilings. So both programs benefit by essentially swapping locations.
Thank you very much. Now let's move on and talk about the proposed new bus loop. Once again, just to orient everyone to the visual here, in the upper left-hand corner is our small traffic circle that we have out in the back corner that connects the Southwoods Middle School, the road that runs between the building and behind the main bleachers. The small traffic circle where our current barn is located here. And then how the road currently runs along between the fields along the side of the high school and makes a sharp right-hand turn at the corner of the building where the pool is located, and then exits out through this parking lot into the front of the building. The projected new bus loop would slightly adjust the exit to a much easier turn at the end there to bring to the front of the building. And most significantly, the dark gray area here would be asphalt paving that is connecting around the back of the building, and that would provide, as you can see here, these hash marks are indicative of where buses can park for dismissal time. And similar to the way we currently have the buses pull up in the back of HBT at dismissal time. And it would allow for us to stage our buses in a much more efficient fashion in the hopes of expediting dismissal, which would then have a positive impact on the dismissal times for both the middle and elementary school. We're hopeful also that the traffic pattern, as we would then have the points of egress off of the high school property, would allow for us to alleviate some of the congestion that is currently a result of the one exit format we currently have onto Southwoods Road from the front of the high school. Dr. Rogers, I'm sure I must have left something out if you'd like to jump in and maybe talk a little bit more about the benefits of this new bus loop.
You left nothing out, but I'll go into a little bit more detail. So right now, there isn't enough sidewalk space in the front of the high school to load all the buses simultaneously. So what happens is we run 3 waves of busing. The first wave of busing comes in. They're ready and waiting when dismissal occurs, and the students will come out and load onto those buses. And it'll take 7 to 10 minutes for the students to get on the right bus and for the buses to exit the circle. Then there's a little bit of a pause while we wait for the next wave of buses to come into the circle and find their assigned spots. Then students will climb onto those buses, and then those buses will exit the circle. And then we have the last group of buses that come into the circle, load, and leave. So this, obviously, waiting for each wave of buses to come into the circle and then to load with students adds time to the high school dismissal. And anything that slows down the high school dismissal ultimately will slow down the middle school dismissal and will result in delays at the elementary school because it's all the same buses. They're just doing one run after the other after the other. So by adding additional loading space at the high school, we hope to be able to load nearly all of the buses at the same time. And what that means is that we won't have a second and third wave of busing to load, and all of the buses should get to the middle schools more timely. And as long as the buses can exit the middle schools timely, we should see better on-time performance at the elementary school. So this is really looking at some of the challenges we've had with elementary school on-time performance, asking the question, what's going on upstream from that's causing that, and then trying to do something at the high school that will actually improve experiences at the elementary schools.
Thank you. We've had a chance now to talk specifically about some of the projects, but we did begin this presentation talking about numbers, and let's go back to that as well. This is where I'm going to call upon Dr. Rufo, if she wouldn't mind jumping in to talk about the project list here, as well as the cost factors and the idea of capital reserves.
Okay, thank you. So what we have here is the summary of the costs, ending with a final total of about $95.9 million. So just to lay this out, the first, if you remember from the beginning slides, we have AVI work of about 46 million, and then all of the other projects follow. So as we did in our first phase 2 bonds, we used our capital reserve, and we also looked to see what other resources we had that we could use to help offset the ultimate cost of borrowing. And we work with our architects and our construction managers on creating these estimates. And our construction managers are very active in this process because they are working on projects that are currently bid. So we take the estimates and look at them and then first see, well, where are the other resources we can use to help offset? And we have about 2.3 million, which is the second line item that we can use from previous funds that have been allocated for similar work. We also have a capital reserve, which the board established in the 2020 school year, and we have about 8 million in that capital reserve. And at this time, we plan to use 4 million of that to help reduce our borrowing costs. And that's how we get from the total cost of about 100 million down to about 96. And one of the other factors that we need to consider when we're thinking about the impact of the taxpayers is state aid, or what we call building aid. And that is the incentive or the reimbursement, if you will, that the state provides to school district to do capital work. And our reimbursement rate with the state is about 42% now. So as we look at these costs, we have to also consider, as we look for additional revenues to help offset, we also have building aid, which comes in on the revenue side to help offset these costs and reduce the impact on taxpayers.
Thank you, Dr. Rufo. We now come to our slide focusing on possible additional propositions. So what you see here is not currently included in the numbers that Dr. Rufo just spoke about or the slides that we have been looking at. However, there is an additional proposition that we might be able to consider, and we therefore would love your feedback to talk about the possibility of air conditioning all of our main gyms at the elementary school. Please note that South Grove Elementary currently does have air conditioning in its gymnasium, and also to have air conditioning for both of our middle schools. And the cost factor we're looking there would be approximately a $10 million investment in air conditioning those particular rooms. So what's next? The next steps. With your help, with your feedback, suggestions, criticisms, thoughts, ideas, anything you'd like to offer us, we're going to take everything and include it in the presentation and the development of a overall draft plan. That overall draft plan will then be made available to the public. We'll continue to hold public information sessions and provide additional mechanisms for questions and suggestions to come in, in the hopes of refining the plan to something that will be embraced by all the members of our community. At that point, the Board of Education will review and there'll be public comment on the plan. There may be revisions made, again, taking into consideration the public comment and suggestions, and then the final plan will be adopted. There will be additional public information sessions on our final plan with a vote in early spring. The time frame is such, and we're hopeful that by doing so, we'll be able to begin construction in the summer of 2025. And there are several benefits to that. We'd be looking at an accelerated review by the New York State Education Department, hopefully avoiding another year of cost inflation and the ability to gain more favorable pricing by bidding out the projects earlier. So that actually brings our slide presentation to a close. And I'd like to then turn this back over, perhaps Dr. Rogers, if you have any words to bring our overall presentation to a close this morning.
No, I'll just summarize by saying this is a draft plan. We are interested in public feedback. We're certain we're going to get questions, and we're looking forward to hearing those questions so we can have them answered in a document that will be a living document on the website and will be constantly updated as new questions come in. And at future board meetings with the Board of Education, we'll be reviewing the feedback that we've been getting, the questions that have been asked, and ultimately working with the board to establish what the final list of priorities and plans is going to be for public consideration. And again, we certainly understand that the longer we wait, the more costly things become. So we're trying to move quickly and avoid another year of cost inflation. And one of the challenges with school construction is that we get our building permits from the state, not from the town. So there's a big backlog at the state, and sometimes it can take as many as 40 weeks to get a building permit. So the sooner we get started, the sooner we can start the approval process, and the sooner we can start construction and hopefully avoid cost inflation by getting started quickly. So everything that we're doing is about trying to shave weeks off of the process because shaving weeks off shaves dollars off in the long run. So I want to thank Dr. Curry, Dr. Rufo, Mr. Hamilton, Ms. Bellato, Mr. Medler for all their help in putting this together and for running today's program.
Thank you all so much. Have a really wonderful day.